Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But what if your kindness is the very thing making you powerless? Kindness. It's something we're all told to practice. From childhood, we're taught that kindness is a virtue, a quality that makes us human. We all want to be remembered as kind people, those who always look out for others, who lend a hand when it's needed. But today, I want to challenge a common belief. Too much kindness without balance can ruin your life. Let me explain why. Dark side of kindness. First, unrealistic expectations and disappointment. One of the first dangers of being overly kind is the unrealistic expectations it creates, both for yourself and others. You may find yourself constantly giving to those around you, always offering help, support, and kindness. You might expect deep down that others will do the same for you when the time comes. But here's the problem. Not everyone operates with the same mindset, and not everyone is as willing to give as you are. This is where the disappointment sets in. You begin to feel let down, hurt, and even betrayed when your efforts aren't reciprocated. It's a natural reaction, but one that leads to frustration. And if you're not careful, this cycle of unmet expectations will create bitterness inside you. You'll start thinking, why should I keep giving if no one else is doing the same for me? But here's the Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that happiness should never depend on the actions of others. When we tie our joy to others' behavior, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. Instead, the Stoics urge us to find contentment within ourselves, independent of the external world. So when kindness isn't returned, we must remember that our peace and happiness come from within, not from what others do or don't do. Second, emotional exhaustion and burnout. Let's move to the next danger, emotional exhaustion. This one hits hard. When you're constantly giving, whether it's your time, your energy, or your emotional support, you start running on empty. At first, helping others might feel good. It gives you a sense of purpose, of fulfillment. But the reality is, if you keep giving without replenishing yourself, you will burn out. You might find yourself feeling emotionally drained, fatigued, and mentally depleted. You become overwhelmed by the needs of others, and yet you never take the time to focus on your own needs. The problem here is that when you give from a place of exhaustion, your kindness loses its purity. You're no longer offering help because you genuinely want to, but because you feel obligated. And that's when kindness starts to feel like a chore. The Stoics had a concept of self-care that was integral to their philosophy. They believed in cultivating personal resilience, maintaining energy, and ensuring mental clarity so you could serve others effectively. If you don't care for yourself first, how can you possibly serve others in the long run? You have to learn how to fill your cup before you pour into others. If you keep giving from an empty vessel, you'll have nothing left to offer. And that's where emotional exhaustion takes its toll. Third, neglecting personal goals and self-care. Another trap of excessive kindness is the neglect of your own personal goals and self-care. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention, and when you're always trying to meet others' needs, it's easy to forget about your own. Over time, you might start putting your personal ambitions on the back burner because you're too busy helping others. You might tell yourself, I'll take care of my goals later, but then later never comes. And here's the issue. When you constantly prioritize others, you end up neglecting your own dreams, your own health, and your own well-being. You lose track of your own purpose and the things that matter most to you. The Stoics were clear about the importance of having a sense of purpose. They believed that we each have an individual path to follow, a mission to complete. If you constantly put others' needs above your own, you risk losing sight of your mission. In essence, you become a caretaker of everyone else's life, but forget to care for your own. Fourth, perception of weakness and lack of respect. Now let's talk about perception. Being overly kind can make others perceive you as weak, too soft, or easy to take advantage of. When you're always saying yes to others, always willing to help, it can create an image of someone who doesn't have boundaries, someone who can be pushed around. This is a common misconception, and it's one that can lead to a lack of respect. People may start to think they can use you without fear of consequence. They know you'll never say no, so they begin to take you for granted. And when that happens, kindness starts to lose its power. The Stoics understood that true strength doesn't lie in the ability to please everyone. It lies in knowing when to be kind, when to stand firm, and when to assert your boundaries. You don't need to say yes to every request in order to be kind. True strength is about having the wisdom to know when to help and when to protect your own energy. Fifth, attracting users and manipulators. Here's a harsh reality. Being too kind often attracts users and manipulators. People who take without ever offering anything in return. At first, it might seem harmless, but over time you'll notice that these people only come to you when they need something, and they never offer any support when the tables are turned. This kind of one-sided relationship isn't sustainable, and it's emotionally draining. You're giving your energy to people who don't value or respect you, and that leaves you feeling unappreciated and exploited. The Stoics knew that being overly generous without discernment can lead to being used. They encouraged us to be selective in how we offer our kindness. Just because someone asks for help doesn't mean we have to give it. By understanding our values and what we stand for, we can make wiser choices about where to invest our time and energy. Sixth, creating habits of overgiving and addiction to pleasing others. Another dangerous outcome of overgiving is that it can become a habit, an addiction. When you constantly seek validation from others by making them happy, it starts to become an automatic response. You feel good when they're happy, but at what cost? You start seeking out opportunities to help, not because you genuinely want to, but because it feeds your need for external validation. This is a slippery slope, because as you keep giving, you become more dependent on others' approval. And eventually, it leads to a sense of emptiness inside when that approval isn't forthcoming. Stoicism teaches us to detach ourselves from the need for validation. True fulfillment comes from living according to our principles, not from others' praise. Seventh, kindness can be misunderstood as manipulation. Another often overlooked consequence of excessive kindness is that it can be misinterpreted. When you are constantly kind to others, especially in ways that involve doing favors, people may start to question your true motives. They might wonder, what does this person want in return? This suspicion arises because, in a world where transactional relationships often dominate, someone who is consistently kind may seem like they have an ulterior motive. And this misunderstanding can damage your reputation. People might start to view you as manipulative, even though all you've tried to do is be kind. The Stoics understood the importance of sincerity, clarity in relationships. They didn't do good deeds with hidden agendas. They acted out of virtue, not for personal gain. And if others misinterpret your kindness, it's essential to understand that you cannot control how others perceive you, but you must be clear in your own intentions. Eighth, self-sacrifice leading to resentment. As you continue to be overly kind, you might begin to sacrifice your own well-being for the sake of others. At first, it seems like a noble thing to do, putting others first, helping them even when it's inconvenient to you. But eventually, these small sacrifices add up. You start to feel like you've given so much of yourself, and yet others don't appreciate it the way you hoped. This leads to resentment. You begin to feel taken for granted. What started as genuine kindness now feels like a burden. And here's where the real danger lies. Resentment is toxic. It clouds your judgment, makes you bitter, and erodes the peace within you. The Stoics emphasized the importance of self-awareness and balance. They understood that true virtue comes from not sacrificing oneself to the point of harm. We must take care of ourselves, or we cannot continue to help others effectively. Ninth, losing your own sense of identity. When you're constantly trying to meet the needs and expectations of others, you begin to lose touch with who you are. The more you give, the more you blend into the backgrounds of other people's lives. You become the helper, the giver, the one who sacrifices. But what about you? Where do your own desires, values, and identity fit into the equation? This is a subtle but dangerous consequence of overkindness. When you become too focused on being there for others, you can lose yourself in the process. The Stoics warned against becoming overly attached to the opinions and expectations of others. They believed that our identity should come from our internal character, not from the roles we play in other people's lives. When we allow our self-worth to be defined by others, we risk losing our own sense of purpose and direction. 10th, kindness as a barrier to growth. Finally, excessive kindness can become a barrier to personal growth. When you're constantly helping others, you may avoid confronting your own challenges. It's easier to focus on fixing others' problems than dealing with your own, right? But this avoidance only keeps you stuck. You're not growing. You're not learning how to overcome adversity or building resilience. The Stoics believed that hardship and adversity were essential to personal development. It's through facing challenges that we grow stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. When you're always playing the role of the helper, you're preventing yourself from experiencing the very things that lead to growth. Stoicism teaches us that we must embrace discomfort, learn from our own struggles, and find strength within ourselves. By avoiding the tough stuff and constantly helping others, you may be denying yourself the opportunities for real growth. The dark side of kindness isn't about being cruel or heartless. It's about recognizing that kindness, like all things, must be practiced with wisdom and balance. If you constantly give without regard for your own well-being, your needs, or your boundaries, it will eventually drain you, make you resentful, and leave you feeling unappreciated. Section 2, the Stoic Way, kindness with strength. Practical solutions. Step 1, be the leader, not the doormat. In Stoic philosophy, leadership isn't about being overly accommodating or trying to please everyone. True leadership is about strength, integrity, and decisiveness. As a leader, you don't need to beg for respect. You earn it through your actions, the quality of your character, and your consistency in doing what is right. You can be kind, but do not mistake kindness for weakness. Leadership involves understanding when to assert yourself and when to show compassion. In this balance, you maintain your power and self-respect. Marcus Aurelius puts it best. The best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. He teaches us that instead of reacting out of anger when we feel disrespected, we should lead by example. Our actions speak louder than our words, and by demonstrating kindness through strength, we set the standard for how others should treat us. Being too nice in the absence of leadership can turn you into a doormat, where people may walk all over you, taking advantage of your kindness. Leaders don't let that happen. They show kindness from a place of strength, knowing when to say yes and when to stand firm. This ensures that their actions are intentional and aligned with their personal values, protecting both themselves and others from harm. Step 2, define your why. Every relationship, every act of kindness should have a clear purpose. Stoic philosophy emphasizes the importance of acting with intention. Without a clear why, kindness can become an empty gesture, offered without consideration of whether it is truly beneficial or necessary. When we act without purpose, we risk becoming overly generous, giving away our time and energy without considering whether it's contributing to our greater goals or values. So ask yourself, what is the reason behind your kindness? Are you being kind because it aligns with your core values to build meaningful relationships? Or are you simply trying to avoid conflict or gain approval? Without knowing the purpose of your kindness, it becomes easier to be taken advantage of, and the value of your kindness decreases. Seneca reminds us, a friend to all is a friend to none. If you spread your kindness too thin, offering it indiscriminately to everyone, you end up not making a true impact on anyone. By defining your purpose, you ensure that your actions are not only effective, but also aligned with your larger goals in life. This brings clarity, allowing you to direct your kindness towards relationships that are meaningful and enriching, rather than spreading yourself too thin. Step 3, set clear boundaries. Stoic wisdom emphasizes the importance of setting personal boundaries. Without boundaries, kindness can quickly turn into emotional exhaustion. If you constantly give without considering your own needs, you will eventually feel drained and unappreciated. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It ensures that your kindness remains authentic and doesn't deplete your own well-being. Epictetus teaches, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. In terms of kindness, this means controlling your time, energy, and resources. You must protect them from being drained by others who may not respect your boundaries. Boundaries are not only protective, but essential for maintaining a healthy balance between giving and receiving. Without boundaries, we risk becoming a vessel that constantly pours out, without ever filling ourselves back up. Establishing boundaries means taking responsibility for your own peace of mind and well-being. This enables you to offer kindness without sacrificing your own needs. It also teaches others to respect your limits and shows them that your kindness is both valued and intentional, not a given that they can exploit. Step 4, learn to say no. One of the most powerful Stoic principles is the ability to make conscious, deliberate decisions about how we spend our time and energy. Saying no is not an unkind act, it is a wise and necessary one. If you say yes to everything, you quickly become overwhelmed, and your kindness loses its depth and effectiveness. Over time, this leads to burnout and resentment, which diminishes your ability to truly serve others. Seneca wisely says, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If you try to be everything to everyone, you lose sight of who you are and what truly matters. Saying no is a form of self-respect. It protects your energy, your focus, and your integrity. By declining requests that don't align with your values or that would stretch you too thin, you preserve your capacity for meaningful acts of kindness. Additionally, learning to say no allows you to prioritize what truly matters, whether that's your own well-being, your work, or your closest relationships. It helps you create space for the things that truly bring you joy and fulfillment. Saying no isn't about being selfish. It's about safeguarding your ability to be genuinely kind, rather than merely accommodating. Step 5, enforce consequences. Stoic philosophy teaches us that actions have consequences. If someone repeatedly takes advantage of your kindness or disrespects your boundaries, it's your responsibility to enforce consequences. This doesn't mean you act out of anger or bitterness, but it does mean you take calm, measured actions to prevent further harm. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In relationships where your kindness is being exploited, you have the power to act without being controlled by emotion. By enforcing consequences, you protect your own well-being while teaching others how to treat you with respect. Enforcing consequences could mean limiting your interactions with people who repeatedly disrespect you, or it could mean making more definitive decisions about the boundaries you set. This is not about punishing others, but about asserting your needs and maintaining your integrity. By doing so, you ensure that your kindness remains a conscious, deliberate act, rather than something taken for granted. By leading with integrity, defining your purpose, setting clear boundaries, saying no when necessary, and enforcing consequences, you can practice Stoic kindness, a kindness that is rooted in strength, self-respect, and wisdom. Section 3, the ego trap, why some people stay too nice. Attachment to ego. Being nice for validation makes you weak. Many people fall into the trap of being excessively kind because they are attached to their ego. At first glance, this may seem like a harmless behavior, but the Stoics warn that this type of kindness can make us weak. When you are driven by the need for external validation, you risk compromising your authenticity and personal integrity. Kindness becomes a means of gaining approval rather than an expression of genuine virtue. Being too nice for the sake of pleasing others or maintaining an image can lead to an unhealthy attachment to ego. This attachment occurs when you base your self-worth on how others perceive you. The desire to be liked and admired for your kindness can prevent you from asserting your own needs, setting boundaries, and standing firm in your values. It ultimately leaves you vulnerable to manipulation, resentment, and burnout. Stoic philosophy teaches us that our true worth comes from within, and we should never depend on external validation for our sense of self. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. By detaching ourselves from the need for others' approval, we align our actions with our virtues rather than our ego. Stoic mindset shift. Do good because it aligns with your virtue, not because you seek approval. The Stoic approach to kindness is rooted in virtue, not in seeking validation. Virtue, in Stoicism, meaning wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, is the true measure of a person's character. When we act in alignment with our virtues, we don't need external validation. Our actions reflect our true values and are done for the right reasons, rather than as a tool for gaining approval. In Stoicism, the ultimate goal is to cultivate self-mastery and act in accordance with what is right, not based on the fleeting rewards of others' opinions. Epictetus teaches, It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When we shift our focus from external validation to virtuous action, we free ourselves from the need to constantly seek approval and the stress of trying to please others. This stoic shift in mindset is liberating. It allows us to remain grounded in our purpose and to perform acts of kindness, not because we expect anything in return, but because it aligns with who we are and the world we want to create. True kindness comes from a place of inner strength and integrity, not from the desire to look good in the eyes of others. Practical example. A powerful historical example of breaking free from the ego trap is the life of Socrates. Socrates was known for his unshakable commitment to truth and virtue, even when it meant going against the expectations of those around him. He never sought approval or validation from the masses. His philosophy was focused on self-examination, virtue, and the pursuit of wisdom, regardless of what others thought of him. Despite facing immense pressure from the Athenian society, Socrates remained steadfast in his beliefs. When he was condemned to death for corrupting the youth and impiety, he could have easily saved himself by apologizing or offering an insincere defense. Instead, he stood firm in his principles, choosing to die rather than compromise his integrity for the sake of public approval. In his final words before his death, Socrates said, "I am not afraid of death. I am only afraid of not living a virtuous life." Socrates didn't allow external forces to dictate his actions. His life is a testament to the Stoic mindset that true virtue is the only validation we need. In his case, being nice wasn't about gaining favor, it was about doing what was right, regardless of the consequences. Do good because it aligns with your virtues, not because you're seeking approval. This is the last section, the balance between kindness and strength. Everything we've discussed in this video leads to one ultimate truth. Kindness should be a choice, not an obligation. Being a good person does not mean being a weak person. True kindness is about strength. It's about giving without losing yourself, about helping others without being drained, and about standing firm in your values even when the world tries to shake you. Too many people live their lives thinking they need to be kind at all costs, but that's not what Stoicism teaches. The Stoics valued justice, wisdom, and self-respect above blind generosity. They understood that giving without boundaries leads to exploitation, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. Marcus Aurelius put it best when he said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." Being a good person doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. It means acting with wisdom, discernment, and strength. Your kindness is in your control. One of the most empowering lessons from Stoicism is that you have control over your kindness. You get to decide who deserves your time and energy. You get to decide when to say yes and when to say no. Epictetus reminds us, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You can't control how others treat your kindness, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to enforce boundaries, to demand respect, and to make sure that your kindness is given on your terms, not out of guilt, fear, or social pressure. So if you've ever felt like your kindness is being used against you, it's time to take back control. Drop a comment below if you've ever struggled with being too nice. Let's break free together. Let's redefine kindness, not as a weakness, but as a strength. And remember, kindness is powerful only when it's backed by wisdom. Thank you.